Hey there, friends. Welcome to another edition of Dear Doc. That's an acronym that stands for Daily Editing Cups, Extended, a couple of sentences to answer a question, Essay, a couple of paragraphs to answer the question, and Respond, just with one sentence, Reading for comprehension, and Revising, improving the content. So if my hand is the reading, I just have to understand the content, whether it's an introduction, we'll do it this way, an introduction, a body, or a conclusion, or a topic sentence, and the specific supporting sentences and the closing of a paragraph. Well, if you're doing revising, you're taking your understanding of this comprehension, and revising means re or revising, looking at something different now than you will later. So there's a candy called Now and Later, but depending on the answer choices of revision, we're either going to do now and later, or we'll do now or later. Since the answer choices that we're going to look at have one that says make no revision, that means whatever we're going to look at looked or looks better now than it will later when we try to make the changes. Now, the arm is what most of you use, and that's better than arms. Arm is adding, removing, replacing, or moving content around, changing the order, changing its organization. A lot of you will use substitute, but so far on the Texas test, I haven't seen the word substitute, so I would recommend that you not use that, but you can use arm in a story as actors remember more story sequence, or if the saying is true that a picture paints 1,000 words, well, 1,000 words will hopefully paint a picture. So another arm that we can think about with revising is artists drawing a picture, remember more story settings or sequence or senses. In other words, taking the picture and drawing what something might look like, sound like, taste like, or smell like. So what we're going to do now is the question asked, what is the best revision? So I want to show you one way to think of revision, changing the order or the organization, the structure of something. And I'm going to use this puzzle right here. Everything in this puzzle is separated by pieces. And if you look close enough, you might not be able to see it here, but the designers of this puzzle actually, yeah, you can see a little bit of it right there. They actually show you the shape of each picture. So I want you to think there's only one way that this puzzle can come together in a certain order or structure. So in some of my trainings, I do an activity called Around the Words in 80 Ways. In other words, changing the order of the words without changing the meaning or the content or without causing a run-on or any repetition. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 4 orders to see if we get the right piece of the puzzle. But before we do that, I just want to show you a free sample of when you're doing revising. I highly suggest, whether it's editing or revising, that you read the questions and the passages solo. So, as in softly, if you're working by yourself on a test or with a partner, or loudly when you're working with groups or as a whole class. And what's going to happen is you're going to, in this case, see the question. We're going to say the question out loud, hear and hopefully be listening to the question, and then start to think about what they're asking us and all of the answer choices. We're going to go look at that sentence. In this case, in the passage, we'll say that sentence, we'll hear and listen to it, and we'll think if there's any words that we don't know in our brain, we can open up a book in all reading and writing tests called the dictionary, and then hopefully we'll be able to write the right answers. As we're reading, we're going to underline and understand the important words in the question. We're going to label, we're going to mark anything important. So labeling is what they do on cans so that you can know what's inside. Labeling is what students should do so you can know what they're thinking. And I have little brackets here. So you can either label by putting little brackets, or some of you have your kids highlight. And so this is a yellow highlighter in case the color's not coming out as clearly. Then you'll start to eliminate one answer at a time. And so if you look at me in the screen, evens and odds, we're always going to eliminate 3 answers. And that's the cool thing about an E. It has 3 little sticks. So we're going to eliminate and explain. I have myself as a plane now. I'm going to make the letter Y. Why did you eliminate those answers? And we'll do the John Travolta. Ah, 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 select one, select one. The correct answer on the test booklet and the Scantron or the computer submission. Now keep in mind, so that we don't bubble wrong in the Scantron, there's one letter, one vowel in the word odd, 3 letters in the word odd. So the first 2 odd numbers are 1 and 3, and then you skip count from there. All odd numbers can only have A, B, C, or D as their answer choice. The opposite of odd is even. There are 2 vowels in the word odd and 4 letters. So the first 2 even numbers on a test are 2 and 4. Then you skip count from there until the end of the test. And so anytime you have even, the only choices you can pick are F, G, H, or J. So make sure your kids notice that there's no E or I. And I kind of joke around, the E is so that you can execute your strategies, eliminate and explain your wrong answers. The I is for the harder one. Sometimes you have to investigate or infer so you can identify the correct answer. Now, I noticed that I was going to need my little friend named Mrs. PVC to help me do the process of elimination. So you could have your kids draw this strange looking lady. It would be like sort of like an anchor chart. The answer that you select in editing or revising, if it changes the meaning or something is missing, I have to, and if you look at her hair, I have to eliminate. There's a bunch of E's on the left and the right side. If I look at her eyes, if I see repetition or a run-on, I've got to eliminate. If the sentence doesn't have a subject, in other words, it's a fragment, as I'm seeing it and hearing it and listening, got to ask myself those questions. That's why I made the Yours look more like question marks. I'm going to eliminate. If it's not specific enough, then I'll eliminate it. Coming down, the cool thing about her hand, she has always three answers that she's going to eliminate and one that she'll select. She doesn't have five fingers because a test only has four choices, not five. And here's her PVC pipe. Is the predicate missing? In other words, is it a fragment? Eliminate it. Does it change the point of view? Eliminate. Does the verb tense change? Eliminate it. Is the answer too vague? Eliminate it. Does it change the content? Get rid of it. Is there something wrong with cups, capitalization, usage, punctuation, spelling, or a sentence boundary with a run-in or fragment? And I've got to make sure I compare because my right shoe and my left shoe are sort of like, here's the question and here's the passage. They kind of have to work well together. So the one I want to do with you is a revision. And we said that whenever you see the words revision, which is the most effective revision? So as soon as your students see the word revision, have them write the word order and think of revision as the candy now and later, that it'll look different now than it will later because we're going to revise the content by adding, removing, replacing, or in this case, moving the order of the words around. But because one of the answer choices says no revision is needed, I've got to check if it's better now or later. And so we have to check all four answers the way it is in sentence 5 would be the now. So if we like that, we would pick D. If we don't like that, then we've got to pick A, B, or C. So it says in sentence 5. So I made a little bracket. And just to make sure that we don't get confused, let's go ahead and write Q number 9. And in case you're wondering, you can see right here, only 36% of the students in Texas in 7th grade got this question correct. And so revising the organization means just changing the order. So think of revision as the order of the words. So we're going to go to sentence 5. And so when you ask me, do I need to read all of the passage, all of a paragraph? No, sometimes you only have to read the sentence they're asking you about. And so in this case, they're only asking us to look at one sentence. So I'm going to come back to the passage, and I've done two things. I put the sentence inside brackets. I labeled it question number 9, and I even highlighted it. So we'll look and see, and I want you to notice that I have over here that actions are followed by reactions, and A comes before R in the alphabet. Causes are followed by effects, and C comes before E in the alphabet. And it's real important that you understand that for the order of the words in this sentence. Capital. When the air is colder than 60 degrees Fahrenheit, that's an action, something that happens. And so that's called the dependent clause. The subject is air, the predicate is colder. When that happens, here's the reaction, another action. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. A butterfly will get cold and lose energy. Okay, so that's the reaction, the next action. and comma, which makes it unable to fly. So watch me and my hands. I'm gonna come off the oh, it's not letting me. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I'm gonna put my hands like this. Get back far enough where you can see me. It said the air gets colder than 60 degrees, so a certain temperature. Two things are going to happen. The butterfly will get cold, the butterfly will get cold and lose energy. Two things will happen. Then it has a comma because it's getting cold and losing energy. That action or that reaction causes another action or reaction. It says, let's take a look at it to make sure we're all on the same page, literally and figuratively here, which, and every time they have a comma with a which, they're basically giving you more information about what was just written. The butterfly getting cold and losing energy makes it unable to fly, period. Okay, so there's an action followed by an action, an action, and an action, or what we would call cause and effect, or action and reaction. So it makes sense that if I start to get cold and lose energy, that my reaction would be it would make me unable to fly. But let's go ahead in revising. You're supposed to look at all the answer choices. So let's check out and see letter A, B, C, and D. When the air is colder than 60 degrees, that part's the same. A butterfly will get cold and lose energy, comma. This makes it unable to fly. By changing the word which tells me more about the previous phrase, to this, it turns this into a run-on. So if you remember, Mrs. VC said, if anything that you're going to choose is a run-on, we have to eliminate it. So we're going to go ahead and place a little X because we don't think we would want to pick a run-on. Letter B, when the air is colder than 70 degrees, it makes the butterfly unable to fly when it gets cold and loses energy. Since when is there twice, that's called repetition, and we want to have the most effective revision. And so if I can find one that doesn't repeat, I'm going to pick it. So I'll put a question mark right here. It doesn't really sound good with repetition, but let's look at the other two just to make sure. When the air is colder than 60 degrees Fahrenheit, comma, cause, a butterfly will be unable to fly. And so what happened, they put what was last, unable to fly, they put it second. And a butterfly will be unable to fly, which makes it get cold and energy. So let's check if that becomes the cause. If this is what happens first, butterfly is not flying. The effect, it gets cold and loses energy. So since that's the wrong cause and effect, the wrong action and reaction, we can't change the order because what's going to happen, it will change the meaning of the sentence because of the wrong cause, effect, and effect relationship. When it gets colder than 60 degrees, the butterfly will next get cold and lose energy, which will make it unable to fly. So that means that there was no revision needed in this sentence, the now or later, And in this case, the now is correct the way it was right now. So if you look at it, it had the correct action, reaction, and cause and effect relationship. So what I've done for you to let you see it a different way, I went ahead and put together that puzzle that I showed you. And this is the only way that the puzzle fits together with all the content, with all the pieces, with all the words. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flip. I'm going to go ahead and flip the puzzle over. And the cool thing is, um, if you get the puzzles that are 8.5 by 11, like this one, all you gotta do is place a sheet of paper under it or over it, and it allows you to turn it over so you can see once you've chosen the correct answer, and as long as it has 24 total punctuation marks and words combined or less, it can fit on this puzzle piece. And so what you see here is I placed it in order already, and then I plugged in all of the pieces of the sentence. Capital. When the air is colder than, and I put them in order, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, a yellow comma, a dependent clause, independent clause coming, a butterfly will get cold and lose energy. Since the butterfly is only doing two things, we don't need a comma before the word and because only two reactions take place. The butterfly gets cold, let me show it to you, gets cold and loses energy. Comma, which, and comma, which means I'm telling you more about the phrase that just happened, which makes it unable to fly, period. And the cool thing is I had just enough space for every single word and every single punctuation mark, yellow to slow down and red to stop. So there was nothing wrong with the sentence the way it was. So I think what happened, and a lot of times I've heard this, there are some teachers that will tell the students never pick no mistake or no revision. Since there was nothing wrong with the sentence the way it was, it wasn't a later that was going to be a better choice. It was the now, the way there's nothing wrong with the way it was now because it had the correct cause and effect or action, reaction, relationship. So that was a Dear Doc. The doc is the development, the organization and conventions. So all we were doing was revision, the R of dear, and we were organizing, changing the order of the words in a sentence. And so when you ask me how low of a grade level could do revision, well, all the way down to pre-K and kinder, because even if you can only talk, you can speak a sentence in a certain order and then change the order of the words by playing around the words in 80 ways. Let me give you a teachable moment of instruction. Let me give you an example of that. If I have a sentence that says, I love to eat sour pickles in the morning, period, I'm starting with the pronoun I. I want to change the orders of the word. In the morning, I love to eat sour pickles, starting with a prepositional phrase. Pickles that are sour are what I love to eat in the morning, starting with the noun. Sour pickles are what I love to eat in the morning, period, starting with an adjective. Capital, eating sour pickles is what I love to do in the morning, starting with the verb. And so as you see, even though I'm not writing, I'm speaking and I'm saying basically my sentence called the pieces of a puzzle, one sentence, and just changing the orders of the pieces to make sure that they still make sense. So do me a favor, share this with your ELAR reading and writing teacher friends, because when it says most effective revision, there could be a distractor. And the distractor in this case was the one that had repetition. And so just as a reminder, the only reason I have that checklist on the side was because of the acronym rules. We read in the question and the passage. We underlined and labeled in both places. We eliminated 3 answers. So we got rid of A because we said there was a run-on. We got rid of B because of repetition. We got rid of C because it changed the meaning when they changed the cause and effect relationship. And so what you can sometimes do is whenever it says because, put the because first in a sentence. That would be the cause. And if it makes sense, because of this thing, the effect is this thing. If that's the right cause and effect, then you can pick that answer. But since this created a wrong cause and effect relationship, we'd have to eliminate it. So the one we're going to select is letter D. We'll put a little D on the side. And then so that we can make sure that our book answer, our left shoe, matches our right shoe, our Scantron or our computer submission. We're going to put 9D book. That way it's 9D Scantron and 9D submit your response in the computer. So there you have it. I have my hospital as a background because when only 36% of the entire population in 7th grade got a question correct, it wasn't just band-aids that need to be done because the test was taken in April by those students. We needed to do some surgery. And so we're going to have to practice doing lots of revisions, changing the orders of words, the organization, by playing that little game that I call around the words in 80 ways, or even around the words in 8 ways, even around the words in 2 or 3 ways. Since there's only 4 answer choices, around the words in 4 ways. Which way is the best? And in the case of this question, the way it was now was the best, not the way, the 3 ways they tried to make it later. We had to eliminate all of those 3. Go ahead and click like on my YouTube video. Subscribe if you're not already doing so, and tag your reading ELAR and writing teacher friends, because this coming year, all of you from 3rd through 8th grade are going to get field tested editing with cups questions, or revising with arm questions, or a paired passage, or just an extra passage. So we have to be ready so that we can be confident when it comes to questions like that. So good luck, God bless, and have a great week or weekend